This is an introduction to angle relationships. So we're going to start talking about angles, angle measurement, and the relationship between angles. So this is just an introduction. This isn't level 2, level 3, level 4. This is just an explanation of the vocabulary. And then we're going to have videos on problems related to this. And it's actually quite interesting. The problems are nice. It's kind of like puzzle, trying to solve a puzzle sometimes. So let's have a quick look at this. So firstly, what is an angle? Well, the definition of an angle is two rays that have a common endpoint. Okay? So two rays with a common endpoint, and it looks something like this. So here's a ray, which is just part of a line, and here's another ray. Okay, so don't worry about what ray means. It's basically this little bit of space in here. And what it means is, just say that we call this arm A and this arm B, right? Well, an angle is, imagine if we want to move arm A into the position of arm B. How much would I have to rotate it to turn it into the position of B? So if I wanted to bring this arm, like the arms, the hands of a clock, imagine they're the two hands of a clock. Okay? So the time is like 20 past 2. If I wanted to move A back into the position of B, how much would I have to rotate it? Well, I'd have to rotate it back this much, and we measure it. So that's what an angle is. An angle, or when we measure an angle, we're looking at the amount of rotation. Okay? So it's the measure of rotation between two, I don't know, arms of an angle. There's the bell. Okay, so you're just measuring how much something has to be rotated. And we know that if something, imagine you're facing the wall and you turn around completely and face the other wall with your back to where you were first, that's a 180 degree turn. Okay, so we're going to talk about the different measures. And we measured with angles, or measured using angles. Measured using degrees, I should say. Okay. There's another measurement as well, but angles are measured in degrees. Okay. Next thing we want to look at is naming angles. So this is important. So imagine I have this here. Now if you look at that, we can think that there's 3 angles here. All right? You could think that this one, you could think this one, or you could think this big one. There's 3 possible angles. So here's how we name them, right? Imagine that we call this point A, B, C, and D. Okay? Now let's look. See this first angle here, which I'm just highlighting in black? That one, if we want to name that angle, well, the way that you name it is, what lines do I have to draw, or what lines do I have to go through to draw that angle? If I want to draw that angle, I have to start from A, or from B, sorry, go to A, and then go to C. So we can start from C, and go to A, and to B. So that angle there, the first one, which I've put in black, and I'm going to call it number 1. Sorry, I'm going to erase that. Give me a second. So that angle there, which I'm going to call angle 1. So we're going to call that angle, we're going to call it, we start from B to A to C. So it's the angle, that's the sign to say that we're talking about the angle, that starts at B, goes through A, and ends at C. Alright? Secondly, if I want to talk about the angle here that starts at C to A to D, look at that angle there. Okay, so I'll put it in blue this time. That angle between those 2 lines. Okay? And we'll call it angle 2. So angle 2, it starts at C, goes to A, and goes to D. So it's C, A, D. Alright? We could also call it DAC, depending on which way you look at it, but both are correct. And then finally, if I look at the big angle overall, the big angle, which starts like this, goes from there to there, right? That angle, which I'm going to put in black, look, that's it there, sorry. I don't want to put it in highlighter, normal marker. That angle there, we'll call it angle 3. Well, that angle, it starts from B, it goes to A and to D. So that angle is B, A, D, bad. Right, so that's how you name the angles, because if you just say the angle A, well, there's 3 possible angles at A. So to be able to distinguish, we have to use 3 letters to name an angle. Okay, so the way that we name it is we name a start point, we name the vertex, which is the corner part, and then the other end. Okay, it's pretty straightforward, I think. Okay, so we're going to look at some vocabulary to do with angles, and I think a lot of this we will have seen before, so it shouldn't be too difficult. Right, so let's start. So classifying angles according to measure. So the first one is an acute angle. So we say an acute angle is less than 90 degrees. And an acute angle usually looks like this. Okay? Then we have a right angle. All these things for your notebooks, by the way, is a 90-degree angle. So it's like this. Look, it's like the corner of a square. All right? Now, what we do to mark that, we put this little box thing in the corner, because that could be 89 degrees, or it could be 89.8 degrees, which isn't 90, so it's not a right angle. So for us to show you, to tell you that it's a 90-degree angle, you have to see this symbol here, okay? That tells you it's 90 degrees. And it's a right angle. The next is obtuse, and obtuse more than 90 degrees. So if that's 90 degrees in the previous one, more than 90 would be like that. You've rotated beyond the point of 90 degrees. And a straight angle then is 180 degrees. All right? So it's like a straight line. So when you see a straight line like that, whenever you see a straight line, you know that that's going to be 180 degrees. All right? I put that mark in to show that we've an angle. So there are main ways of classifying angles by their measure. Acute, right, obtuse, and straight. Now something really quick. If an angle is 90 degrees, it's a right angle. It's not acute or it's not obtuse. It's right. Acute is strictly less than 90. Obtuse is strictly more than 90. Okay? Next, complementary and supplementary angles. So, complementary angles are angles that add up to 90 degrees. Okay? For example, you could say that a 60-degree angle and a 30-degree angle are complementary to each other. 77, 13. 77 degrees, 13 degrees. They would be complementary because they add up to 90. 89 and 1. They're complementary. They add up to 90. Okay? What do complementary angles look like? Well, if you look at this here, we'll say that this is 90 degrees. We'll draw a line through it there. Well, this angle here and this angle here, when they're put together, they make the 90-degree angle. So they're complementary to each other. All right? Because when you put them together, they make a right angle. Supplementary means that they add up to 180 degrees. So that way, examples of supplementary angles would be 169 degrees and 11 degrees. They will be supplementary. 30 degrees, 150 degrees, they would be supplementary. So these are examples of angles that are supplementary to each other. What does it look like? Well, here's a straight angle, a straight line. And if you have something like that, Well, if you look at this angle here and this angle here, when the two of those angles are put together, they make up 180 degrees. So that's what supplementary means. All right. And now on to our last slide. So we're going to look at vertical and adjacent angles. So vertical angles are opposite in an X. So what I mean is, if you have, say you have a line like that and a line like that that cross each other, we get an X shape. Okay, so whenever you have an X shape, the angles that are opposite each other, so for example, this angle here and this angle here are opposite, so we call them vertical angles. And then also, look, this one and this one, they're also vertical angles because they're opposite each other in the X. Okay? And a quick note about that. Vertical angles are congruent. Okay? So whenever you have two angles that are vertical, they're always the same size. Always. So if I tell you one angle, if I tell you, for example, that this here is 70 degrees, well then that means that this here must also be 70 degrees. Yeah? Just, it's the rule. And then the other two, they must also be the same. And then finally we have adjacent angles. So that means angles that share a side. Okay, so we'll just write that down now. Angles that share a side. Okay? Adjacent angles aren't necessarily congruent. They can be, but they're not necessarily. I'll show you what they look like. You see them in the X as well. If you have this here, right? If you look at this angle and this angle here, well, both of them use this side, don't they? Okay, so that side that I've just drawn in red is common to each angle, so that means the two angles are adjacent. All right? They're not necessarily the same size, but they are adjacent. Okay, that's pretty much it in regards to the vocabulary. It's pretty easy, so we shouldn't have too much difficulty with that.